Thank you, Chair.
Hello. Okay. I, Stuart Ringer, do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Please provide your full name.
Stuart Martin Ringer.
Stuart, were you a friend of Małgorzata Elżbieta Breczko-Nowak?
I was.
What did you call her?
Gosha.
And is that spelt G-O-S-I-A?
It is indeed.
And is that in fact a short version of her first name, Małgorzata?
Correct, it's a Polish name.
And was she also known by a different name to certain other people?
Yeah, she would often introduce herself as Ella, which is an abbreviation of Elżbieta.
Her second name?
Yeah.
Stuart, you've provided the inquiry with 2 witness statements. Dealing with the first statement, is it dated the 24th of April 2025? And is it 7 pages long?
It is indeed.
And dealing with your supplementary or second statement, is it dated the 30th of July 2025? And is it 22 pages long?
Well, I won't count them, but yes, it looks that way.
Yes. Well, you could take that bit from me. Does this second statement, your supplementary statement, in fact incorporate 3 exhibits from your earlier statement, namely a short written note by Gosha on the 4th of April 2019 about a meeting she had with a woman we're referring to as Care Coordinator A, who worked as part of the team at the Chelmsford and Essex Centre? That's your exhibit SR3.
That's in the long version.
Yes.
22 pages.
Also, a letter you sent on the 7th of June 2019 to the Care Coordinator, your exhibit SR2, and a letter you sent on the 16th of April 2021 to the head of the Chelmsford and Essex Centre, together with a statement of facts. That's your exhibit SR1. So those 3 exhibits have been incorporated into the body of your second.
If they're in there, I know the ones you refer to, yeah.
Yes. Have you had the opportunity to read through the statements recently?
Yes, I have.
Are there a couple of corrections you'd like to make at this stage to the supplementary statement?
Yeah, mainly spelling mistakes on my part, but yes.
Okay, let me take you to it. We don't need to pull this up, but at page 21 of your second statement, at paragraph 17, you refer to the note, the handwritten note that Gosha wrote, and the typed version gives the date as the 4th of October 2019. In fact, should that be the 4th of April 2019?
Correct.
And on the same page, you say, I understand there are protocols in place as I am not related or her partner. However, she does not live in my property. In fact, should that say, however, she does live in my
Correct.
property? So those are both corrections to page 21 of your supplementary statement. Can you confirm that subject to those corrections, your statements and the documents that they incorporate are accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
They are indeed.
Stuart, you're welcome to refer to them as you wish.
I will refer to her as Gosha.
Fine. Those statements will stand as your evidence, so we don't need to go through every sentence within them, but I will today take you to parts of them and ask you questions. Stuart, is it right that you also provided a written commemorative and impact account to the inquiry? And in fact, in September 2024, you came to Chelmsford and you read it to the chair.
I did.
Thank you. Before we go any further, can we identify the community mental health teams and the inpatient unit that will be at the heart of the evidence that you're going to give today? First of all, dealing with a period around 2012-2013, Was Gosha under the care of the Brentford Community Mental Health team?
Brentwood.
Brentwood.
Yeah.
And at this time, was Brentwood part of the SEPT Trust, the South Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust?
SEPT indeed, yeah.
And just moving forward to another period that we'll be focusing on, 2018, 2019, was Gosha then under the care of the Chelmsford and Essex Centre, a community mental health service in Chelmsford?
She was.
And as we'll hear, did she spend 2 different periods of time in the Peter Brough unit in Colchester?
In Colchester, yeah.
So she was a mental health inpatient at Peter Brough.
Yes.
And both the Chelmsford and Essex Centre and the Peter Brough unit, are they part of EPUT, Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust?
That is my understanding.
I want to now, please, deal with a difficult element in Gosha's past before we move on to your evidence. You've explained in your written evidence that she had a happy enough childhood. Those were the words that you used. Was that in Poland?
Yes, it was.
But that this was until a period when she began to experience emotional, physical and sexual abuse.
Correct. From the age of 12.
From the age of 12 through to?
16.
16.
And if I can, so 12 to 16, the only reason that stopped is the perpetrator.
But the effect of the abuse was profound on Gosha, is that correct?
I think that would be an underestimation, yeah.
And it remained profound throughout her life?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't find out about it. I met her in 2001, but I wouldn't find out about it until 2010. So she'd buried it deep within herself.
And for reasons that will become clear a little later on, that aspect to her life, that tragic element to her life, you feel is really important to understanding the future trajectory of her life?
Absolutely, it's fundamental.
Did you, as you just mentioned 2001, is that when you first met Gosha?
Correct.
Was that in Spain?
Yes.
In your written evidence, you've explained that at the time you had a brief relationship, then went your own separate ways, but remained friends. Was that correct?
That's correct.
And can we now move forward to June 2010? And is that when Gosha actually came over to England?
No, she'd been in England since 2003, end of 2003.
What happened in June 2010, as far as you recall?
I was going off abroad for a number of months, and I needed someone to look after my property here in London. And she said that she would house sit for the time that I was going to be away, which was meant to be 6 months, but it ended up being 3.5 or something like that.
So she's moved in to house sit, you've gone
Correct.
away and you've come home earlier than expected.
Correct.
Was there therefore a period of time that you were cohabiting?
When I came back, then we were cohabiting, yeah.
Over the next 9 years or so?
Sorry, Mr. Greenwood, if I could just drill down a little bit there.
Yeah, please do.
It's when I came back, I'd sort of got the impression that she was drinking more than perhaps was normal, but it wasn't until I came back that I was faced with she was alcohol dependent. And that was the start of a very, very steep learning curve about alcoholism. So it wasn't until when she came to house sit, I didn't know she had a drink problem. But when I came back, I definitely did.
So you just take a step back.
Yeah.
She's come to house sit. You've come home a little earlier than expected. It's at that stage that you've learnt about her addiction.
Correct.
I'm just going to make sure that everyone can hear what
Am I speaking loud enough?
Yes.
Hear me at the back?
Yes, perfect. So from that time on, over the next 9 years or so, were you in contact with Gosha for most of that period?
Sure. Yes, I was.
And did she remain in England for that time?
Yes. Yeah.
So we will move on to talk about Gosha, about her mental ill health and about her alcohol addiction.
Yep.
Before we do that, could we talk about your relationship with her and how you would describe it over the next 9 years or so from that time in June 2010 when she moves in with you? For example, you've mentioned in your written evidence that you looked after her.
Yeah.
Would that be correct?
Yeah, I became, I guess, involuntarily her carer because she just descended into a malaise of depression and anxiety. It was sometimes worse than others, but became very clear to me that she wasn't able to stand on her own 2 feet in life. At times it was almost like she'd just given up.
You mentioned the word carer. You refer in your written evidence at stages as being her primary carer. Is that how you regarded yourself sometimes?
I would say, but just to clarify the word carer, it wasn't like I had to make her meals or anything like that, but she wasn't able to stand on her own 2 feet in life. So at times I would have to, she would be very seriously ill. There were various elements of having fits because she would withdraw from alcohol, try and just quit. But carer is the only word I can come up with that describes it, encompasses it.
Were you also sometimes responsible for financial aspects of her life?
Very much so, yeah.
Could we look at something else that you've said in your written evidence about your relationship? I'm going to ask for something to be put up on the screen. Could we put up, please, supplementary? Oh, that's fantastic. So this is supplementary statement, page 3, the 4th paragraph. And just for the transcript, this is HJA 008848 at 0003. Now, this is a part of a letter you wrote in 2021. What I'd like just to do is to read it out, please. I know the truth of my relationship with Ms. Brechka Novak, and I'm comfortable that I did my utmost to care for her, even under the most challenging of circumstances. I had no training and no experience of helping someone with addiction and mental health issues. I received almost zero help or guidance. It then says into your life. What did you mean just with those last few words?
I think taking the one paragraph is slightly taken out of context, perhaps, and so just to explain that last bit on the end,
yes.
I'm not 100% sure without reading it, the whole thing.
Well, if we need to, we can look at the context. But for present purposes, I wanted to focus on this because it may bring up some of the themes that you want to bring out during the course of your evidence as we go through it. First of all, the challenging circumstances that you faced and having to do so without actually being trained.
Yes.
And with receipt of very minimal assistance elsewhere.
Absolutely. My experience is that when you contact the mental health team, and it was in London, it was in Essex, 2 of them, no one gives you guidance as a carer. There is no help and assistance. You've got the person living in your property, you're responsible for them on a day-to-day basis, but no one says, okay, Stuart, this is the help we're going to offer you to make it easier for that person. How do I care for that person? There is nothing. That's my experience. Other people, it may differ, but that was my experience.
Thank you. Could you take that down, please? We're going to move on now to consider relevant parts of the period from 2010 on to 2019. So June 2010 or thereabouts, Gosha comes and moves into your home. And how long were you come back a little bit early, how long were you cohabiting at your home?
Until the very early stages of January 2011, the property that we were cohabiting in, I'd sold. So I moved out to my father's property in Brentwood, in Essex, and Gosha moved into a small apartment in Whitechapel.
And the period, sort of 2011, 2012, you describe in your written evidence as being marked by you helping Gosha from time to time to find accommodation and
Yes.
sometimes even helping to fund it.
Correct.
A period of calm, those were the words that you used, for about 6 months.
Correct.
What was that followed by?
Sinking into a greater reliance on alcohol. And one of the biggest, I don't know if problem's the right word, but Gosha wouldn't engage with the mental health services, and a lot of it out of fear. I think partly because maybe she felt like they were going to dig into something that she didn't want them to dig in because she was scared of that childhood trauma. So she wouldn't answer the phone when they phoned her because they would use withheld numbers, and she was, partly because of an ex-boyfriend had been causing her problems, so she wouldn't answer the withheld number, but she wouldn't open her mail. So she would miss appointments. Effectively, they would say she wasn't engaging with them. That was a constant theme. That went on for the next good few years.
In around September 2012, did you and Gosha discuss her coming back to live with you in your home in Brentwood?
Yeah, I naively thought that if she lived with myself, I could engage with the mental health teams, because between 2010 and 2012, I would say her mental health deteriorated and her reliance on alcohol had gone up. Even though she was medically alcohol dependent, she was drinking a lot more. So I felt it was right for me to intervene. But I said to her, you can come and live with me, but you must engage with the mental health team.
Did you suggest that she should also engage with an organisation such as Alcoholics Anonymous?
I did, but she was very anti-Alcoholics Anonymous because they were a bit too religious. And she, because of her upbringing in Catholic Poland, she was, I would say, anti-religion. In part because when her abuser passed away and she told her family what had happened, she was criticised and shamed by the family, and almost to the point where, this is obviously anecdotal, is what she told me, that they said she was responsible. And that came a lot from Catholicism and original sin and stuff like that. So when she was exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous, they can be a little bit on the religious side, so she didn't like that.
Once she'd moved in to
Brentwood.
Thank you. The mental health team there, that was the Brentwood mental health team that she came under.
That was SEPT.
Yeah. What I want to do now is to move into 2013 and events then, Stuart. Before we do, I want to make sure, because there are certain allegations during this period and other difficult evidence, that this is a period that you think it's important to be covered.
I find it highly pertinent for what happened then later on in 2019, yes.
And so this is something you've thought about, and of course you've got your own legal team to support you and advise you. So you could confirm clearly that this is a period and these are events that you absolutely want to cover.
Correct.
So I want to move to around April 2013. Was Gosha still at your home in Brentwood?
Correct.
Can I just ask you this? Around this time, about how much of your time was spent one way or another looking after Gosha?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're going to touch on it separately, but I'll touch on it now. To be in contact with SEPT, you have to go through the general practitioner. So I'd registered with the GP, and he'd prescribed various drugs for depression, anxiety. When she engages with SEPT, they look at her, and they don't correspond with the GP. They then give her more prescription drugs. I looked at these prescription drugs, and all of them said, do not consume with alcohol. She's an alcoholic. So she's been double medicated, and she's an alcoholic. So that is a challenging environment when someone is intoxicated day in, day out, and that made going to work, running a business, etc., very, very challenging.
So that was clearly an area of concern for you. Were there other concerns arising from her treatment, either by SEPT or the local GP?
Yeah, if I just dwell on that point for a moment,
Yeah,
though,
please do.
Ms. Griffin, is that I wrote to SEPT and I wrote to her GP asking them to communicate, because I said, this is the situation. She's been double prescribed. They never wrote back to me, never corresponded.
So this is the 10th of April 2013, the letter that you wrote to the Chief Executive Officer of SEPT, correct?
Forgive me, I don't remember the exact date, but there is a copy of the letter in the evidence I supplied to the Chelmsford Centre of me writing to the GP and to SEPT saying, you need to communicate.
We look at one of those communications.
Yeah.
Could you put up, please, page 7 of the supplementary statement and expand the top paragraph?
Yep.
So this is part of the your written evidence from the 16th of April 2021, and it says this, that during a discussion that you'd had, you were informed that Ella had made a comment that I may have used physical force on her, and protocol said that due to this, SEPT were not able to communicate with me, hence lack of recent communication. And so during a meeting with the CEO of SEPT, you discussed whether this comment may have been truth or a result of medication and alcohol.
Correct.
So had the situation been that in the Brentwood area, the community team had been liaising with you in relation to Gosha and then stopped?
Correct. So I was questioning why they'd stopped. Gosha was also telling me that her care coordinator at the time, she didn't like her. She wasn't responding to her phone calls. So she asked for that person to be changed. I believe there's letters in there. So I'd written asking she could be changed, and then there's no communication with me.
Well, let's follow this through,
Yeah,
because
sure.
there's certainly more about that later in
Yep.
your evidence. What did you think when you heard about the allegation about the use of physical force?
Well, firstly, I knew it not to be true, because there's just no way on earth I would have hurt her. That's just not me as a person. So I then brought the subject up of the double medication and the drinking at the same time. And look, Mr. Griffin, if I turn up to give evidence here and I'm clearly intoxicated, are you going to allow me to give evidence? I don't think you are. So that's what I questioned with the CEO. And he took that on board, and he said they would open up a line of communication and they would also change the care coordinator.
Well, we can see, can't we, the last sentence of the paragraph that's up on the screen. It was decided that we should, in the interest of Ella Gosha,
Yeah.
restart her care and communication with myself.
Correct.
You refer there to a protocol. What did you mean about the SEPT protocols that were in play at this time?
To my understanding, if there is allegations of physical abuse or proof of physical abuse or mental abuse, they won't talk to the perpetrator.
But do you accept that it's important where that kind of allegation has been raised, that there should be some procedures governing communication?
Absolutely, because it is unfortunately more commonplace than I guess any of us would like. But I also think it's important to look at whether that is true or not just block someone out.
As far as you're aware, following your conversation with the CEO of SEPT, was any further action taken in relation to the allegation of abuse?
No.
And as you've touched on, I think, were there positive repercussions of that meeting?
Absolutely. The new care coordinator was frankly, a much nicer person and easier to communicate, and Gosha got on with her much better.
And did communication between you and that community mental health team improve from that time?
It did.
Thank you. Could you take that down?
Can you remind me of the date of that?
So this is part of your SR1 exhibit. And is this a letter or part of a communication in relation to a period in 10th of April 2013 or thereabouts?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think there was a subsequent meeting, you've given the date in your written evidence of the 31st of May 2013 with the new care coordinator, where it was agreed that the mental health team might actually become a little bit more involved in helping to look after Gosha. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I was asking for help. Going back to what you earlier put up there, I didn't know how. I really thought naively that having her living with me engaging with the mental health team, that we could get somewhere. But I was like, please help me, help her.
How were you at this time?
I was struggling.
You've explained how relations improved with the mental health team and communications improved. Was there any positive effect on Gosha and how she was at the time?
No.
No.
No. It was just easier for me if they're communicating with you, you at least can see there might be a path forward. But with no communication, you are just left flailing in the wind.
Stuart, I'm going to move on now to events in June 2013. Yep. All right. It's right, isn't it? In fact, some of what we're about to discuss is quite distressing.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, in fact, I'm also giving a warning to other people who might be watching or listening.
Yep.
Could you put up, please, the second statement, supplementary statement at page 7? Thank you. So this is from the second full paragraph. And what you say here is that over the following weekend, Miss Novak was in a medicated haze, and on Monday, the 3rd of June, I called the care coordinator requesting that she speak to Miss Novak's GP to find out what was going on. So we've moved forward to this period in early June where clearly you're concerned about how Gosha is, and you refer there specifically to her medication. What was the issue, and what information were you hoping to get back via the care coordinator at this time?
The level of medication. I understand that if somebody is suffering depression, anxiety, they need a level of medication if they're that bad. But if they can't function, then you've got to question the level of medication. Now, I'm unsure at this stage of whether she was still being double medicated, but if a person can't function and they are almost unable to get out of bed and just do daily stuff, go to the bathroom, whatever they're doing, and that is being caused by medication and alcohol, then you've got to question what this person is being given.
So you were seeking clarification. Did, in fact, the care coordinator get back in touch with you?
Not to the best of my recollection.
We can see just what's up on the screen, reading on. You also informed her that Ella had, I think that should be, an extremely black eye.
Correct.
A condition that Ella would not give a clear or coherent answer to where she acquired the injury, merely stating that she'd fallen, which was clearly not the truth. That evening, Ella was so heavily medicated that she became trapped in the bath. She'd not let the water out. She'd let the water out and was unable to lift herself out of the tub.
Yeah.
And did you then say, I came home and found her almost passed out And had to physically lift her out. She was covered in bruises.
Yeah, I had to open you can open a bathroom lock with a screwdriver in case someone locks themselves in. So I knew she was in the bath, so I'd come home, she's in the bathroom, said she's having a bath. After half an hour, she's still not out. So I'd knocked on the door, nothing. So I'm like, right, I've got to do something. So I unlatched the door and I went in, no water in the bath, and she's just laying there. She's semi-conscious, and she is covered in bruises. And so I had to physically lift her out the bath and put her into bed.
Did you have any idea where or how Gosha had received her?
I had no idea at all. And frankly, at this stage, she could hardly speak. So, to try and get a sentence out of her was a struggle.
You say in the passage that we've just looked at that in relation to the black eye, she stated that she'd fallen, and as you said there, which was clearly not the truth. Why did you think that wasn't the truth?
We've all fallen over. It's pretty challenging to get a black eye when you fall over. You'll bruise an arm, you'll bruise a shoulder. Getting a black eye from falling over, it's pretty unusual.
Can we take that down, please? So that paragraph that we've just looked at refers to events on the 3rd of June, 2013. Were you again in touch with the care coordinator the next day, the 4th of June?
Yeah, I called her and I asked her to come to the property because I was concerned for her safety.
Now, we're going to come on to this, but
Right.
as I understand it, it's significant in your view that you were the person making this communication.
Correct.
And calling the care coordinator, is that
Yeah,
right?
I instigated the call and I instigated them. I asked the care coordinator to turn up at the property, come and visit, and she brought the CEO from SEPT with her.
So this is at your house where Gosha was staying at the time?
Correct. Can I just add, though, this is not a house, it's an apartment.
An apartment.
It's a 9th floor apartment with an outside balcony, and I had pointed out that she had threatened to throw herself off this balcony in previous months. So for me to leave the property and leave her in there, mentally, every day I was preparing for a phone call from the police that she'd actually done something. That's where we were at that point. I thought she was a threat to her own life.
And did the care coordinator and the SEPT CEO both come over to your house to see Gosha?
They did.
Was that on the same day, on the 4th of June?
It was, yeah.
Did you have an opportunity to discuss Gosha's condition with them?
Yes.
Do you remember what was said about her injuries?
They said that she needed to go to hospital, to which I agreed. And so the care coordinator was a lady, so she took her into the bedroom and got her to undress, I presume. And she said she needs to go to hospital because she didn't want to go to hospital. But eventually they persuaded her to do that. Whilst that is going on, I'm talking to the CEO, and he accused me of taking drugs because he said, it smells of incense in here. And I'm like, okay, what's that got to do with the price of eggs? And he said, well, a lot of people that do drugs, cannabis, put that on. I went, no, I don't do drugs. I said I do it because I do yoga, but it was just the tone that they were coming at me. There was very accusational right off the bat. And I said to him, you need to get more involved in it because I can't cope. I said, you need to do something. And his reply was, it might be in the evidence, I believe it was, is that, well, you brought her into your life. I'm like, what's that got to do with it? I said, I might have brought her into my life, but I'm saying she's a mentally ill person and I need help. Didn't seem to care.
Did you discuss with him or the care coordinator, or indeed both of them, whilst they were there at the house, how Gosha may have sustained her injuries?
I don't, probably, but I would have probably given the same answers I give now. I don't know how she sustained them. one would presume if she's intoxicated, she has fallen in some way. I don't know how she'd got them.
In your written evidence, you speak about how you were at this time. We've touched on it already, but you say this: I will be very clear at this point, I could not cope.
Correct.
This was breaking me as a person. Those are the words that you used. Are they accurate?
Yes.
Did you consider, is Gosha taken to hospital?
Yes.
To the A&E?
Yeah, Basildon Hospital.
And did you then consider whether it was appropriate for Gosha to come back after hospital to stay with you again?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact timing, but I think it was within about an hour that I called the care coordinator and said, I'm sorry, but I can't let her back in. I said, you need to intervene here. I think what I was really trying to say was she needs sectioning, because I felt that she was a threat to her own life. I didn't word it that way at the time, and maybe that's really what I've just come to think in my head, but that is what should have happened to her, and that was the help I was asking for.
Was Gosha released from hospital later that same day?
Well, we're skipping on a bit, but no, the chronology, the timeline was after I called the care coordinator and said, I'm not going to let her back. She said, okay, I'll look at what we can do. And I think it was approximately 2 p.m, it is in my statement, that I got a phone call from the hospital, from somebody that I knew there, because we'd engaged with them, the detox team there, or alcohol team there, he is named in there. I said, no, I've said to the mental health team, I'm not going to come and get her. I said, she can't come back to the house. I need someone to help.
So pause there.
Yeah.
In your written evidence, what you say is this, that at around 16:45 or 4:45 p.m,
Okay.
a person we're referring to as Mr. D, but you're absolutely right, someone from the Basildon Hospital alcohol unit called you to come and collect Gosha.
Correct.
As she was free to leave the hospital. You've just explained what your response was to that suggestion. Yes. Now, the time I think you feel is quite significant of this exchange, 16:45, 4:45 p.m, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's highly pertinent to what happened later.
Gosha was discharged from hospital. Is it right that she did not go back to your house at that time?
Correct.
I want to move ahead, please, just 3 hours. And I'm going to ask that something else is put up on the screen. Could you put up supplementary statement page 8, please? The penultimate paragraph starting, I returned home. So this is your description of what happened next. Can we read this and then we can talk about what you've said there? So this is also part of the statement of fact you'd previously provided and now is incorporated in your witness statement. So you say this, remembering that you'd received the phone call from the man at the alcohol unit at 16:45 about collecting Gosha, you say this, I returned home at approximately 19:45 and was met by 2 officers from Brentwood Police Station and arrested on a charge of GBH. So this is just 3 hours after that phone call, correct? Mm-hmm. Did that arrest relate to Gosha's injuries?
Indeed.
And what were you being accused of?
Grievous bodily harm.
But were you being accused of causing them, of beating her?
Yeah. Yeah.
We can see that this continues. I was detained in a cell at Grays Police Station for 23 hours, despite asking both the detectives that interviewed me and writing to the Chief Constable on the 27th of July 2013, I've never had a clear explanation as to why Now, I think there should be a was there. Can you confirm that? As to why I was called by the hospital to collect
correct.
Ella.
Yeah.
Then within hours of being arrested, as I was a danger to her, other than we had once been in a relationship 10 years prior, the timeline of these phone calls, in my opinion, is highly relevant. What did you mean there by the timeline of the calls being highly relevant?
If at 4:45 in the afternoon you are a safe person to collect somebody and take them back into your home, how are you not a safe person 3 hours later? Something changed in those hours, and the one thing that changed was me refusing to pick her up. A decision got made to say that I had beaten her. Before that, I was a safe person to collect her. Someone made a decision to contact the police and make an accusation, a false accusation.
We'll come back to that very point if we may. Just dealing with your arrest and interview, was any further action taken against you by the police following the arrest and the interview?
No, it was dropped, insufficient evidence.
No charges were brought?
No, and I would argue it's not insufficient evidence, it's no evidence.
Was Gosha in fact taken to a shelter?
She was in Harlow.
And was that a shelter for women who'd suffered domestic abuse?
It was.
Now, you have touched on your concern about what had happened that led to your arrest. Can we go into that now in a little bit more detail? You suggest, picking up on something you've just said, you suggest in your written evidence these are the words that you use. I assert that Sept made false and serious allegations against me with a view to placing Gosha in a sheltered housing property. Now, is that something that you stand by today?
Absolutely, yeah. And if I can just dwell on that
Yes,
for
please.
a moment, is I understand the position I put them in. I understand that Gosha was a highly vulnerable person. I understand that they wanted to get her housed, but not at all costs. And the cost that got paid later on down the line, I know we'll come to that, but the cost of making false allegations which are completely illegal and a crime to lie to the police, that crosses a line.
So let's be clear. Your suggestion is that Sept are making up allegations about you and reporting them to the police?
Correct.
You've said in your written evidence that Sept made a false report so that they could get Gosha rehoused. Can you help me with this?
Yeah, sure.
Why would Gosha's accommodation be a matter of such concern to Sept that they'd make a false report to the police?
I guess their option was they either did that or they put her out on the street. But what I don't understand is why, if she's a threat to herself, which I believed she was, if she's threatened to throw herself off a 9th floor balcony, which they know about, why was she not sectioned?
So picking up again on something you touched on a few moments ago, your concern is that this whole incident had serious repercussions a little later down the line. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Look, I've got broad shoulders. I can take it on the chin. It's not very comfortable being arrested, but it's like, I know I didn't do it, so it doesn't really bother me. But what I learned is when you go up against the establishment, how you can get slapped down. And I would have nothing to do with them for the next 6 years because I didn't want to go anywhere near them. I didn't trust them. But it was only, and I'm sure we'll get to it, at the end of 2018, I had no choice but to get them involved again because of her situation was so dire.
So let's just unpick that, if we
Yep.
may. So she's currently under the care of a team in Brentwood and under the care of SEPT. And there is this serious allegation that's made against you.
Yep.
If we move forward a few years to 2018-19, she comes under the care of a different mental health team, the Chelmsford and Essex Centred team. But is it your concern that information about this allegation was passed on to that team and in some way led to them treating you in a way that meant information wasn't going to be shared with you?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't see their files, but the way I was treated, it was as if Gosha living at my property, because we'll come to come to how she ended up back at my property in 2016, is I got the distinct feeling I was being treated or viewed as an abuser, and the relationship was therefore toxic.
So your view is that what happened in 2013 set the scene for what was to happen
It completely
a few
coloured
years
it.
down the line?
Yes.
I would like to ask you this question. What do you think it was appropriate for SEPT to do after the care coordinator and the CEO of SEPT
Yep.
had seen Gosha with her injuries at your
Yep.
home?
I think she should have been sectioned at a psychiatric unit.
Do you agree that there's an argument that SEPT might have been criticised if they hadn't made a report to the police in those circumstances?
Possibly.
In your view, with your experience, do you think there was any reason why they should be contacting the police?
I'll come back to the timeline. Is if they're calling me at 5:15 saying it's okay for you to come and get her, but that's when I stipulate, no, I'm not coming to get her. Something changed in those 2 hours. I was either a safe person for her to be with, or I wasn't a safe person for her to be with.
And if I've understood your evidence correctly,
Yeah.
your suggestion is that what changed is that SEPT made a report to the police
Correct.
and that their motivation was to get her
To get her
rehoused.
housed. Correct. And if I can just touch on that, is they put her in a centre in Harlow,
Yes.
which was, you said, is for people that have suffered domestic abuse. She is a highly stressed person who is an alcoholic. That place was dry. She was there for, I think, 3 to 5 days. I can't remember the exact time. They threw her out on the street.
So in your written evidence, I think you referred to a couple of weeks, but
It might be that, yeah.
The result is that she's sent to a facility that doesn't allow drinking, and she was an alcoholic.
No, and by this time she's now in Harlow. Well, SEP didn't re-engage with her. It's like, well, she's over there now. She's not our responsibility anymore. It's like we don't need to be engaged with her.
Was she then in various properties in Harlow
Yes,
until the end of 2016?
correct.
During this time, were you still in touch?
Yes,
In fact, would she sometimes come and stay with you, and did you continue in certain ways to support her?
I did, yes.
In fact, during this time, did you move home yourself?
Yeah, I'd moved from Brentwood to Chelmsford.
And in fact, did Gosha start doing cleaning jobs in the Chelmsford area?
Yeah, she would come over. She'd either get the bus on a Sunday or I'd pick her up and she would do various cleaning jobs on a Monday, Friday basis. And then she'd either get the bus or I'd drop her back. But Chelmsford had a lot more opportunities than Brentwood and certainly Harlow. And she started, I really felt she was on the road to recovery. She had a bounce and a step, and she was earning money, and she felt like she had a purpose.
In fact, you've referred to 2016 and her moving back in with you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was December 16, but she was getting made homeless. So the property that she'd been living in Harlow was a housing association. It was paid for via benefits. But again, this thing, we're going back to the not opening the mail, not opening or taking a call from withheld number. She was doing that. At the same point, she's also being taken to court by her estranged daughter in Poland.
Well,
We'll come back.
rather than going into
Yeah,
that,
sure.
there were personal issues that she had. I think debt may have been another one.
Very much so.
Were you helping her out with those matters as well as with others?
I wouldn't help with the financial side of it, but I'd do my best to administer it, but I did ask her to deal with it a lot because there needed to be a sense of responsibility in her own actions. So I was doing my best to encourage her to be aware of life.
So you say in your written evidence that, in fact, confirming it was December 2016 when she moved back in with you.
Yeah, so she got made homeless, so there was a writ, an eviction notice.
You said that things were looking up, and this is how you describe it in your written evidence relating to the period in January 2017, that you felt, and these are your words, that really felt we had turned a corner.
Yeah.
She had 3 jobs, and for the first time in 7 years, these are your words, she had a smile on her face.
Yeah.
Stuart, was there unfortunately a relapse when she started drinking again and in fact lost her jobs?
Yeah, look, I went off travelling. I like doing various rides around the world on my motorbike, and this time it'd taken me to Australia and New Zealand. So I'm halfway around the world, and this trip had been planned for quite a time, and that was in February 2017. So she'd only been living back at my accommodation for a few months, but because I felt that she'd turned the page, turned a corner, and was happy again, I felt safe to leave her. And I'll always regret that.
When you came back, did you do what you could to help her? For example, was it you who assisted her? She went on a detox program, I think.
No, I didn't help her with that. That was, I can't remember the name of the charity in Chelmsford.
Open Road?
Open Road, well done, thank you. But they got it funded by a charity called Action on Addiction.
And in fact, did she then go into rehab with Action on Addiction in Billericay?
Yes, it was a non-residential, it was a day rehab, so they would pick her up in the morning, take her over there in the afternoon. But detox is 8 days or something of that nature. This was ongoing, so it was detox rehab. I think it lasted 6 weeks, something of that nature.
And were you actually doing extra stuff to assist her? For example, did you engage a private clinician to assist her?
I did, a private psychologist.
Just say
Psychotherapist, sorry.
Psychotherapist.
Yeah.
Thank you. What I'd like to do now, please, Stuart, is to move towards the end of 2018.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I just ask one
Yes.
question?
Yeah.
After the incident of your arrest, and you then continue to see Gosha, did you at any time have the opportunity to ask her how she had sustained those injuries?
That's a very good question. I don't think I did.
And did she at any other stage sustain serious injuries as a result of... Did she...
Not to the best of my knowledge. One of the problems that I always faced is that sometimes I'd ask her a question and she'd say, I've got no recollection of that period.
She'd say, sorry,
I've got no recollection of that period.
Right.
So her memory, it's why we quite often don't remember what happened the night before. If you're intoxicated, your memory's not always that good. And so much of her life at that point was under intoxication. So there would be often blanks for weeks. She couldn't remember what had happened. So I don't recall asking her, but...
And you don't recall an incident subsequently of any sort of...
Not to that
injuries?
extent, no.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Chair. We've talked about Open Road and action on addiction earlier on in 2018.
Yes.
Moving towards November 2018, did Gosha unfortunately start to drink again?
I don't think she ever quit. I don't think she was ever completely dry, but things started to deteriorate, yes. And things also became very challenging being around, for me, being around someone who is drunk a lot.
You say this in your written evidence. You make the point about things becoming very difficult at home around this time. You say that your patience broke and you asked Gosha to find alternative accommodation as you couldn't cope. Is that right?
Yeah, I think there was... At one point, I asked her about the psychotherapist, and she would always be very dark after the time she was there. So the psychotherapist would come to the house, but I wouldn't. It would be on day. I would make sure I wasn't there, so they got privacy. But when I come home, she'd quite often be in a dark mood because she'd probably touched on something she didn't want to touch on. But one day she just wasn't, and I asked her. I said, "Are you only seeing her to keep me happy?" And she just almost laughed. I was like, "You are, aren't you?" She wasn't doing it for herself. And I'm like, "You're not engaging." And that I found difficult.
Did things reach a head at the end of November 2018?
Yeah.
What was Gosha's physical health like at this time?
Very poor. She wasn't eating a great deal, but what I noticed mainly is she wasn't drinking water. She wasn't taking on fluids. So I haven't got a medical background, but she was clearly dehydrated. And then if you add in alcohol, I don't know what her medication levels were at this point, maybe none. So she was self-medicating, but she wasn't drinking water. And I noticed, I can't remember the exact date, but she was just laying on the sofa, just doing nothing.
Did you call an ambulance?
I did.
And was she taken to Broomfield Hospital A&E?
Yes. And when the ambulance team were there, I pulled one of them aside and I gave him a bit of background, and I said, "I think you need to make a phone call to the mental health team." And I can assure you, Mr. Griffin, how challenging that was for me, given the history, to make that call, because I didn't want those people anywhere near her and I didn't want them anywhere near me.
Did you learn that Gosha was transferred from Broomfield Hospital to the Peterborough unit in Colchester?
Gosha called me and told me that, yeah.
As far as you're aware, was that a voluntary admission? Did she go there of her own free will?
She was, in the phone call, she said, I either volunteer or they're going to make me go.
Did she remain there for about 10 days?
10 days exactly.
So was this end of November 2018, start of December 2018?
Correct.
Were you able to visit Gosha or at least talk to her during this time?
I went and saw her.
Do you have any observations about her time on the Peterborough ward during this stay?
I thought the care seemed absolutely fine. I didn't see any. I know there's been various complaints from other people, but it's nothing I witnessed. There was an event that happened in there, but that was between her and another patient, and I believe the police were called. The other patient had hit her.
Well, we'll come on to that in just a moment, if we may. Where did Gosha go after she was discharged from Peterborough?
Back to mine.
Was staff aware that she'd be coming back to your home?
Yes.
Was there any discussion with you in advance of her discharge to facilitate that?
No.
Were you aware of any discharge plan?
No, they just called me and said, I think Gosha called me and said, I'll be home at this time. I had to make sure I was there because she didn't have keys.
So you just mentioned something, and I want to come back to that now, please. I'm going to ask that something else is put up on the screens. Could you put up page 4, paragraph 21 of Stuart's first statement, please? Okay. I think this is what you were just talking about. Can we
Yep.
see what you said in your first statement? In terms of Gosha's safety as an inpatient, it's my belief that during her stay at Peterborough in December 2018, she was physically assaulted by another patient. I only have anecdotal evidence that Gosha gave me at the time. Gosha was asked if she wanted the police involved, and she said no. So a moment ago you thought the police might have been involved, but is this likely to be more accurate?
No, that's the accurate, yeah.
Did you get any more information from Gosha or indeed anyone else about the nature of this assault?
No. No one from the medical team, no one from the hospital called me and gave me any information.
Thank you. Could you take that down, please? How was Gosha when she returned to your home after the stay at Peterborough?
Highly medicated. I mean, when she was medicated, obviously depends on what medication she was taking, but the prescription drugs seem to make her more disconnected with life and dysfunctional. Whatever they were giving her in the hospital made her to seem okay with life, if that makes sense. Like whatever demons were going on in her head, it seemed to placate those, and she was just calm. And I wouldn't say that was the case when she was taking whatever drug she would get from the GP.
You've said in your... can I just ask you this? If she was on strong medication, would she normally also be drinking?
She's an alcoholic, yes. However, that said, when obviously she can't drink in a unit, so she wasn't alcohol dependent at this time. So there is a difference between dependency and alcoholism. So if you're dependent, you have to drink every day, but you can be an alcoholic without needing to drink every day. And when she recently come out, she certainly wasn't drinking. I think the medication was enough to keep the demons at bay, so she didn't feel the need.
Thank you. What I'd like to do now, Stuart, is move to 2019. Is that all right? Was Gosha still living with you at this time? As we've heard, under the care of Chelmsford and Essex Centre Community Mental Health Team. Did she have a care coordinator there that we're sometimes referring to as Care Coordinator A?
Correct.
I want to ask you about a meeting with Care Coordinator A in January 2019. May I just read to you something that you've said in your statement?
Can we,
Yes.
sorry, if we can just back up for the timeline. Of
course.
In December,
Yeah.
when she first came out, this same care coordinator visited the property, and I made sure I was there because I wanted to engage with them, and this woman looked at me like she absolutely hated me.
So this is Care Coordinator A, meeting at your house.
Yeah.
You felt a hostile atmosphere.
Yeah.
Was there any discussion or words to go with that?
No.
So that's an impression that you drew from the way that she was acting generally when she was there?
Yeah, the way someone looks at you. You can tell if someone doesn't like you. Sometimes they don't need to use words. And she just looked at me with, like I say, she hated me. So
just moving on then, following that meeting in December to January 2019, and this seems to be a further meeting with Care Coordinator A, unless it's the same one. You say she attended your property to visit Ella and spent approximately 15 minutes talking to her. You say, I made it very clear that as Ella's primary carer, I needed to be kept informed of her care and medication programme. You say this, I was both disappointed and extremely distressed that on several occasions I was never included in these discussions. So have we got to the situation again that information was not being shared with you
Correct.
that you felt it was necessary to have if you were properly to look after Gosha while she was staying with you?
I didn't understand how a highly medicated person can be given a lot of drugs and be relied upon to take them at the right time and the right dosage. And I know for a fact that Gosha would take more on a day. She would forget that she'd taken something. So it wasn't malicious. She wouldn't think, I just need to drown it out. She couldn't remember if she'd taken her medication in the morning or the afternoon.
Did anything change in terms of the amount of information you were being given after you spoke to care coordinator?
Absolutely not. I never got any information whatsoever.
I'd like to move to March 2019.
Yep.
During this month, did Gosha need to go into Broomfield Hospital in relation to a physical health issue?
Yeah, gallbladder problem.
And you say in your written evidence that she was there for around 9 days.
Thereabouts.
Do you remember this? How did Gosha react to the fact that she needed to go into hospital?
Well, it was a normal hospital. It wasn't a psychiatric unit. I mean, she was very worried. For someone that abused herself so much, she was always worried about her health. But, yeah, she was really stressed about if you've got anything internally wrong with you that you don't understand, and the doctors are like, she was put in a unit, there's special wards that you put on if there's an imminent medical procedure needed doing, because they're monitoring you. So it's not ICU, but they're like, we've got to have this person prepped all the time in case we need to operate. And she was on one of those. So she's heightened stress levels.
During the period that she was in hospital, was she trying to get in touch with Care Coordinator A, as far as you're aware?
She was, and she, partly because of the medication she was on, partly because she couldn't see that well. She'd had an alcoholic withdrawal fit whilst in Basildon Hospital, thinking about 2013, and she collapsed in A&E and fractured her eye socket. So her vision at times wasn't great. So with the medication, she asked me to send a text to her care coordinator. So we typed it out on the phone, she read it, I sent it. No reply. And that was detailing where she was, how long she'd been in there, how concerned she was, and she needed to speak to someone from the mental health unit. No reply.
And generally speaking, did you discuss with Gosha what she thought of Care Coordinator A and the assistance she was getting there?
Yeah, she didn't like her and she didn't trust her.
What was your suggestion that Gosha should do in those circumstances?
I said, you need to ask to change. She asked me to do it. I said, well, they won't talk to me. So I said, it's got to come from you. She was concerned that by making what she saw as a complaint, it would be seen as a negative for her. I said, it's got to come from you.
So can we now move to April
Yep.
2019? I want to ask you about a meeting that Gosha had with Care Coordinator A on the 4th of April. Was this after her release from Broomfield Hospital?
Yes.
Again, I'm going to ask for something to be put up on the screen, please.
Yep.
Could you put up page 21 of the supplementary statement, please, and expand paragraph 17? So this is Exhibit SR3. So this is the handwritten note from Gosha that has been typed up and incorporated in your witness statement, correct?
Yes.
Meeting with her care coordinator A. Now, we've established already that that should say the 4th of April 2019, right?
Yep.
And I just want to read this with you, please. Exhibit SR3, Gosha's handwritten note of meeting with her care coordinator A. And the note starts, meeting with Care Coordinator A on the 4th of April 2019. We talked about me moving to safer placed. I explain it would be difficult without eviction note or claiming that I'm being physically, verbally or mentally abused at my current address. If I claimed any of the above, I would immediately be given alternative accommodation, but it would also mean that Stuart will have a criminal record. Would you? Oh, that's very helpful. And we can see it just continues over the page. To that, she answer, so what? And suggest that I should cut all the ties with Stuart ASAP to move on.
Do you have the actual note there? Can you show that?
We can't, because there have been certain redactions that have been made to it. Is there a particular point that you want to bring up?
No, I just thought it might add more context for the audience rather than just reading it.
Can we work with this for now? Because there are a few things I want to ask you about.
Yeah, sure.
So, can we see at the top? We talked about me moving to safer placed.
It's safer places, so she's missed. They probably couldn't read her handwriting.
So, is this a reference to a place called safer places?
Correct. It's a refuge.
So this is, again, history repeating itself.
Domestic
it's a
violence.
conversation about Gosha moving into a refuge.
The reason I got her to write that down is she came home from this meeting with Care Coordinator A and told me what she'd said, at which point the alarm bells start going off in my head. I've come up against the establishment once. I'm now really worried about my safety. If they're coercing her into making accusations against me, that can affect huge amounts in my life. It affect my liberty. That's the kind of thing you can go to jail for.
So with that in mind, you wanted her to record
Correct.
the conversation that she'd had.
Correct.
Can we look at it in a little bit more detail?
Yep.
So this is Gosha saying, I explain it would be difficult without eviction note, or claiming that I'm being physically, verbally, or mentally abused at my current address. So this note suggests that Gosha is explaining these things. Now, you'd spoken to Gosha about the conversation. What is your understanding about what happened?
That the care coordinator was asking her to make allegation against me.
So is it your understanding that instead of I explain, it should say that the care coordinator explained?
I guess that's why I'm asking for it to be put up and people can see the way it's written. You've got to remember this is a person that's intoxicated, writing things down, and she's Polish, so it might not be the clearest English in the world.
Well, put this note to one side. You'd had a conversation with her.
Yeah.
What had she said to you in that conversation?
She'd said that the care coordinator had suggested to her or asked her to make allegations against me. She believed that the care coordinator believed that the relationship was toxic and that she needed to break all ties with me. Now, this is extremely relevant, not just of how it might have affected me, but there's only two men in the world that she ever trusted. One was her grandfather, who she moved in with when she was 16. And this is, I put this in clear perspective in my commemorative statement. But this woman, I shouldn't say that, this care coordinator, was putting a wedge between me, the only person alive, the only man alive that she cared for or trusted, and her. And I believe that the anxiety that set off in her head, that she was going to potentially lose not only just the only man that she trusted, her only friend pretty much in the world, that really, really caused a disturbance mentally. And I think, it's my belief, my assertion, that led to her demise in the way she was mentally and her drinking.
So we'll follow the timeline through.
Yep.
But is your point essentially that a wedge is being driven between you and Gosha, and the result of that was essentially that her sole source of support outside the clinical situation was you?
Yep, correct.
Okay. Is this therefore history repeating itself in your view? Because we've spoken about the situation in 2013 where you assert that SEPT made false allegations or a false report against you in order to get Gosha rehoused. Are you saying here that something similar is happening, but with Care Coordinator A doing it?
Yeah, and I think what she was probably, again, sorry, apologies, I said she.
That's all right.
What they were claiming was based on reading this document here, or their files, that he abused her. So the person that, this is 2013, then in 2019, they're looking at going, she's living with the same abuser. We need to get her out. So this falsification from 2013 has run down through history and is affecting their view on our relationship in 2019.
How were relations between you and Gosha at this time?
At that point, very good. After she came out of the unit in 2018, I spent a lot of time just sitting with her, saying, you're clearly very unwell. We need to get you better. And things had calmed down a lot. One of the things I agreed to do is she was in a lot of debt. There was this court case that her daughter had taken against her in Poland, but won it. And that was then being applied through the British court system.
So generally speaking, you were assisting in ways that you could?
She was highly stressed over her financial situation. So I said, you concentrate on getting better. I will deal with the various court cases that are ongoing.
Stuart, we're going to take a break in a moment. Before
Yep.
we do, can we just finish off on
Yeah.
this note? Would there have been any truth in the suggestion that, as we can see here, that you'd been physically, verbally or mentally abusing Gosha at your address or anywhere?
No.
Had you done anything that you're aware of that could justify Care Coordinator A's suggestion that Gosha, as we can see just at the bottom there, should cut all the ties with you?
Absolutely not.
Could you take that down, please? Chair, that might be, we've been going for about an hour and a quarter. That might be a time for maybe a 10-minute break. So to quarter to 15:45, 3:45, I'm informed. So 10 minutes, Stuart, if that's all right.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Stuart, could we just tie up the various points we were talking about just before the break? I want to just read from your second statement. It's page 13 for those who have it in front of them. Just and then ask you if there's anything else you think it's important to say about those particular events.
Yep.
You say this, it's near the top of page 13. Given my previous treatment by Brentwood mental health team, I found this particularly alarming behaviour, talking about Care Coordinator A,
Yep.
for two reasons. One, Ella was being asked to walk away from the only friend that had stood by her throughout her troubles. She had no other support system in the UK, one friend who lived in Australia, and we'll come back to her, won't we?
Melanie.
And was estranged from her remaining family. This had the potential to heighten her anxiety. So that's the first point you make here. And then the second point you make is this: the possibility of having my name again falsely tarnished. If Care Coordinator A had the slightest insight into Ella's condition, she would have realised that a sense of abandonment was one of her biggest fears. She was now asking her to lose her only friend.
Correct.
Do you stand by what you wrote there?
Absolutely.
What, in your recollection, was the effect of all of this on Gosha?
Just a deterioration in her mental state. There was almost a franticness, if there's such a word, in her behaviour at times. A lot of almost panic, just with the most routine daily chores. Yeah, I'd say frantic would describe her state of mind.
What I'd like to do now, please, is to move to May 2019.
Yep.
You describe in your written evidence how you attended a meeting at the Chelmsford and Essex Centre with Gosha, with Care Coordinator A, and with a doctor, at which Gosha made it clear that she wanted to be readmitted to Peterborough.
If I can just go back a couple of
Yes,
days.
of course.
So bear in mind, I've already had conversations with Gosha around Care Coordinator A and her view of me, and I'm starting to take notes of things Gosha's saying and getting her to write notes. Gosha sat me down and said, I've got an appointment with Care Coordinator A. I want you to come, which was very unusual. And frankly, I was a little reluctant because I knew I was a bit persona non grata. And Gosha then said, I'm going to ask to go back to that place, and that place being the psychiatric unit. And I said, well, why? I said, you didn't, it's not like you enjoy being there. And it really struck me as an unusual thing for her to say, to which she replied, I just can't control my mind.
Was she drinking at this time, as far as you're aware, more than usual?
No, she wasn't actually drinking at this point.
Do you remember the meeting now?
Yeah.
Do you remember what Gosha said? You said, I can't control my mind. Did she give any other information to the clinicians who were present at that meeting?
That sentence wasn't used in the meeting, but she did say to the clinicians that she wanted to go back into the psychiatric unit, to which there was, frankly, quite a bit of pushback and reluctance, to which Gosha replied, if I don't go in there, I might do something. And the inclination was that she meant take her life in some way, shape or form. To which I replied, no, come on, Gosha, you're not going to do that. And she went, oh, believe me, I have enough stuff. And I presume she meant medication from that. So she's threatening to take her own life in a meeting with her care coordinator and a psychiatrist, and neither of them took any notice. They just carried on with what they were doing.
You say in your written evidence that she did actually say, I just can't control my mind. Those were words that she actually used at the meeting. Is that likely to be more accurate?
Yeah. I mean, look, it was a term I definitely remember it when we were sitting down on the sofa, because it's the first time I'd ever heard her say it.
So she said this. It's clear that she has suicidal thoughts.
Yes.
Did you get the impression that the clinicians present accepted what she was saying and thought she should be readmitted?
They didn't seem in much of a hurry about it. They didn't seem to think the reaction I got from them was not what I expected, and she wasn't admitted till about 2 days later, and there was an impatience from Care Coordinator A. It was like it was an inconvenience.
How was, in your perception, Care Coordinator A acting towards you during this meeting?
Frostily would be an underestimation. She didn't want me there. So Gosha hadn't told her that I was going to be there. We just walk into the centre, and then this person comes out, and she looked, you can see when someone's eyes open wide, it was a bit of a shock that I was there. But Gosha said, I want Stuart in this meeting.
In your written evidence, you say that Care Coordinator A also, these are your words, accused me of being an enabler.
Correct.
Do you remember, what did you think she meant by that?
That was about the financial elements of Gosha's life. So what I'd said to Gosha is, you concentrate on getting better. I will deal with all of these debt matters. And I had, and very successfully, I'd got some of the loans or the debts completely written off. And we got the courts to back off on this application for debt recovery from the Polish courts. And when I told this person that, she just said, you're not letting her stand on your own 2 feet, you're enabling her. Yeah, just called me an enabler. That wasn't constructive.
You gave evidence about the position in 2013 when you were dealing with SEPT.
Yeah.
And what the CEO of SEPT had said to you about inviting her in.
Yeah.
Does this sort of mirror that? You're being accused now of being an enabler.
Yeah, I think they were different. They're different perspectives. Me asking for extra help from SEPT, that was like, well, she's partly your responsibility, and I do get that. But if you've got someone who's threatening to take their own life, I believe that's what a mental health team is meant to be there to help prevent. And when somebody's saying, I need help, as a carer, I think it's appropriate, it's given. But I think it was a different viewpoint when they were calling me an enabler. It was almost like, well, you're not letting us stand on our own 2 feet, therefore she's never going to be able to stand on her own 2 feet. And I know what happens when I don't, when I let her try to do that, she falls on the floor. So I thought, if I can take away the stressful aspect of the finances and let her focus in on herself, I thought that was a good thing to do. And there I am being told, you're wrong.
In fact, 2 days after that meeting, on the 25th of May 2019,
Yeah.
was Gosha readmitted to the Peterborough unit?
Indeed, yeah.
And as far as you recall, again, was this technically at least a voluntary admission?
Oh, yeah, she'd asked to go. Yeah, she wanted to be in there.
And did she remain on the unit until the 5th of June?
Unfortunately, only 10 days, yes.
We'll come on to deal with the length of time she was there. But that does mean that both of her stays at Peterborough were for about the same period of time,
Correct,
just
10
10
days.
days.
Yeah.
Were you able to visit her during her second stay at Peterborough?
Yeah, I went to see her.
Do you have any observations about the way she was cared for when she was on the Peterborough ward?
I don't have any complaints. It seemed the nurses seemed nice. My only issue is that they released her too early, and I believe we're going to come to that.
We'll come to that.
Yeah.
While she was still on the ward, did you become aware of the intention to discharge her from Peterborough?
She had an appointment with Broomfield Hospital for, this was to do with her gallbladder, so what she'd been in hospital for in March, and I questioned the nurse about that because they said they're going to take her down there. And I was like, well, okay, you're going to take her down there and bring her back? And they said, well, no, we can't keep a bed open. I'm like, well, you're not keeping a bed open. I said, you're just taking her down there, bringing her back. So the bed's, it's the same thing. I went, well, we'll look into it. We don't think we can do that. And I just couldn't get my head around that thinking.
So is your understanding this, that the trigger for her leaving a mental health inpatient unit was simply the fact that she had a physical health appointment
Correct.
somewhere else?
Yeah.
What did you say about This is all ahead of the time.
Yep.
What did you say when you learned that they weren't planning to readmit her after the appointment at hospital?
I can't remember what I said, but I was only speaking to a nurse. She's not dictating what happens on the time people are in there. But I just thought it was complete and utter madness.
Why did you believe it was too early for Gosha to be discharged?
I just don't see what they got to the bottom of in 10 days when someone is saying, I need help, has threatened to take their own life in front of a psychiatrist. 10 days of medication changes nothing.
You say this in your first statement. It's paragraph 39. These are your words. She was clearly vulnerable and in need of an extended period of care.
Yeah.
Does that encapsulate the point
Absolutely.
you've just made?
Yeah.
But she was, in fact, discharged on the 5th of June 2019. She did go to hospital for that particular appointment. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I argued my case with the nurse, but she was only a nurse at the psychiatric unit. But I wasn't informed by the hospital or by anyone that she would actually be released on that day. I was hoping they weren't and that they would take her back. But Gosha then called me later that day to say, I'm home.
And this was back to your home?
Back on the 5th, yeah, to my home.
I want to put up on the screen something you've said about all of this, if that's okay. Could we put up, please, the first statement at paragraph 17? I'm just going to read this. I do not think that decisions about Gosha's mental health treatment were appropriate. She was discharged against her will on the 5th of June 2019. The reason for discharge was to attend an outpatient's appointment at Broomfield Hospital. Given that she had expressed suicidal thoughts in her meeting with her care coordinator on the 23rd of May 2019, I do not believe a 10-day stay at Peterborough was sufficient. Now, you've picked up on most of that already in your evidence to the chair today. There's one thing I wanted to ask you about that we haven't covered yet. It says here that she was discharged against her will. So we've heard your views. How did you come to discover that this was also against her will?
She said she didn't want to come home. She wanted to stay there.
Do you know if that view was also communicated to people on the ward?
I don't know.
Yeah. Could you take that down, please? Now, what I want to do is to go back to the day before she was discharged, the 4th of June, please. Were you contacted that day? Do you recall this?
Yeah, I did.
From someone from the Peterborough ward?
Yeah.
And what was the purpose of that?
She asked me to write a letter saying that Gosha wasn't welcome back at my property.
How did you feel about that?
Well, I thought it was a fabrication. She was asking me to fabricate something. She was asking me to write a letter so they could present it to the council, asking for independent housing for her, to which I replied, that's not my intention and it's not my feeling, but I said, she's not in receipt of public funds. So I said, you can put anything you want in front of the council, they are not going to fund it because she's not eligible for funds. So I said, you're wasting your time. But they insisted almost, said, well, can you please do it?
And did you?
Yeah.
In your written evidence, you describe it in this way. You say, only under duress did I agree to write this.
Yeah, I knew, one, it's not what I felt that was appropriate for me or her, but I also knew it would be rejected. So if you're telling someone, we're going to get you housing, knowing they can't get housing, you're slightly elevating their expectations and then you can let them down. I just don't know where their thinking was.
Had Gosha, in fact, raised the possibility of separate accommodation with you while she was still at Peterborough?
She hadn't raised it with me, no.
Do you know what Gosha's preference was at the time?
I don't, Mr. Griffin, no.
you say this in your second statement. On the 25th of May, Ella was picked up from my property by ambulance and taken to Peterborough. You then describe some of what happened there. And then you say this: I visited her there and we spoke about this issue. This is housing, separate housing. As I could not understand why this became a preoccupation for her, it appeared to me that she was being pressured to move from my property, even though she was not in receipt of public funds, therefore not a realistic prospect. So this would suggest that it might have been something that Ella did pick up with you on the ward.
It certainly sounds familiar without me reading through it all, but yes.
In fact, on the day of Gosha's discharge, were you contacted by Chelmsford Council?
Yes.
And what did they say to you?
Well, I was quite amazed they actually phoned me, but they just said, very sorry, Mr. Ringer, she's not eligible for funds, therefore we're not going to house her.
That's what you'd predicted would be the case?
Absolutely, yeah.
In your view, what was the effect on Gosha of the possibility of separate housing being raised but then removed?
I just think they were toying with her mind. And when you've got someone who's vulnerable, I would have thought the thing that you need is consistency, not irregularity.
As far as you're aware, had any discharge plan been put into place before Gosha was released from Peterborough?
Well, I'm sure there was one given to the Chelmsford Centre, but none was given to me.
And as you said, it was actually Gosha who told you that she was back at your home,
Yes,
having
it
been
was.
released.
Why was she not eligible for public funds?
Oh, that's complicated. A lot of it is because she'd never paid, in her time in England, she'd never paid tax. Or certainly not enough. So because she was a Polish national, you have to have paid X amount. This is my understanding. But let me phrase it another way. Is sometimes she seemed to be eligible for public funds and other times she didn't be. She didn't. And that is a conversation you'd have to have with the DWP to understand why. They quite often change their rules and regulations on a weekly basis. So 1 minute you can be eligible for benefits and the next minute not.
I'd like to ask you now, Stuart, about a letter that you wrote shortly after Gosha was discharged from Peterborough on the 7th. So this is on the 7th of June 2019. And you're writing this to Care Coordinator A.
Yep.
Can we put up the supplementary statement, please, at page 21? And can we expand? That's perfect. So what's missing is Dear Care Coordinator A. Then we come here. This Wednesday, the 5th of June, Ella was released from the psychiatric unit in Colchester and back to my property after a brief visit to Broomfield Hospital. I've had no communication from any department to convey why she was released, what were the findings, or what is the plan going forward. I am deeply concerned at this lack of information. I've asked Ella for information, however, and quite naturally, given that she's on medication, she's confused and unclear of the current standing. So this is you expressing concern that you'd not received any communication after Gosha's release, correct?
Yes.
Can you provide a little more information about the difficulties you're experiencing at home with Gosha that led you to write this letter?
It was really around the medication side of things is, well, one, there's no diagnosis. So it's easy to say, oh, she suffers from depression and anxiety. But I know these things, but I would have thought if you've been inside a psychiatric unit and been examined by a psychiatrist, there's a little bit more in depth there. So I felt that as a carer, if I was given some information, all right, I'm not a clinician, but it would at least give me some insight to what I'm trying to do and look after. But it was more the medication. There was no meds plan whatsoever. And I think that, that is dereliction of duty. That's not quite the right term, but, how can you hand someone over to a carer and not give them a meds plan when they're highly medicated? You haven't even got tablets for, well, this needs to be taken this day, that day, at this time, can't drink this, can't eat that, nothing. So you're expecting a medicated person just to self-medicate themselves. It's just bonkers.
Can we just read on? I understand that there are protocols in place as I'm not related or her partner. However, now we've established already that not that we see there shouldn't be there. So it should read, I'm not related or her partner. However, she does live in my property. She has no access to public funds currently, so I cover all her living costs, as well as doing my best as an untrained person to offer support. This support takes its toll on me at every level. The hardest thing for me to deal with is a lack of information or knowledge of a plan for Ella going forward. As I've just expressed, I understand you as an organisation will have your protocols. However, I don't think it unreasonable for me to be included in solutions for Ella's future. I'd appreciate an open line of communication and perhaps a meeting to discuss how I can better help in this. So you're back to a position that you experienced before, is that right? Where you're not getting information and that translates into it becoming very difficult for you to help Gosha.
The status quo remained.
Is there another point here? Were you ever asked to provide information to healthcare professionals about Gosha?
Nothing.
Would you have been able to provide relevant and helpful information to them if they had asked?
Well, I've certainly been willing. It's a deeper factor and failings of the mental health system, but unless you're understanding the root cause of someone's mental health problems, is how do you try and deal with them, cope with them, is if someone's got cancer, you don't rely on painkillers to make them better. You look after the cancer, but give them painkillers. At the moment, we have a situation, and certainly in Gosha's situation, they're just given a medication without dealing with the cancer of her brain.
Can we come back to that point? Because I know that's a very important point for you. So
sure.
Maybe we'll end up with that point. So I promise you I will come back to it.
But I could have certainly given them insight into her daily life. Would I have given them the information that I knew about her sexual abuse? Certainly not without her permission. But unless we deal with that aspect, then we're banging our head against the wall.
After you sent this letter, did communication with you improve?
No, didn't get anything.
Could you take it down, please?
I know we're skipping forward here, Miss Griffin, but I've had one piece of communication from them, and it was a few hours after she died. They asked me if I wanted any help. I said, you're a bit bloody late. Excuse my language.
How was Gosha after her discharge the second time from Peterborough?
Heavily medicated.
I think you may say in your written evidence that she did actually start to engage with Alcoholics Anonymous.
We tried. I went with her to a couple, but again, this religious aspect would come up. She seemed to be better balanced. She wasn't drinking at this point. Again, if you're on enough medication, the alcohol, as long as you're not dependent, it hides, masks the demons that you've got buried and that can keep raising up. So that side of things did actually seem slightly controlled, and she was trying to get some work, but I think she felt like she was normal and everyone else was looking at her like, you're drugged.
You describe in your written evidence a home visit on the 16th of June from a support worker.
Yeah.
As you understood it, was this someone from the Chelmsford and Essex Centre?
It was. I can't remember her name. I think she was trainee. It'd be too strong a word, but she was much younger than the normal. And I made it very clear to her, I'm not getting any communication from any of the care coordinators, and I need help and assistance in that. And she said, I'll speak to somebody, but I never got anything.
Once Gosha had returned to you, was there any further conversation about her finding alternative accommodation?
No. Well, there was one conversation. We were walking back from one of these Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was a lovely summer's evening. I won't swear, but she said, please don't let them put me in some hole. You can put the word before that if you want. And it was quite a joking conversation, but I think I got the feeling that she'd almost thought it was inevitable that they would move her out in some way, shape or form. And I do remember one conversation, and she said, maybe if I live somewhere else, I won't lose you as a friend, which hurt.
In your written evidence, you say this. So we've just been talking about a home visit on the 16th of June.
Yeah, sorry.
You say in your written evidence that on the 21st of June, so a few days later, Gosha called you in the afternoon in what you describe as a state of hysteria. Do you remember that?
I do remember.
She'd just been at the Job Centre Plus and been told that she'd been refused benefits.
Correct.
Her conversation, these are your words, was fixated on the fact that if she could not get benefits, she could not be moved to another property.
Yeah.
And she said, care coordinator A wants me to move. So do you now recall that?
I remember that call, yeah.
Did all that, in your words here, contribute to a state of heightened anxiety?
Hugely.
The next day, the 22nd of June 2019, a Sunday, did you find Gosha intoxicated?
I did, yeah, in the late afternoon.
This was the day before a friend of hers, we saw actually in one of the documents that was put up on the screen, reference to a friend from Australia.
Am I allowed to use her name?
Well, should we call her, should we use her first name?
Melanie.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the same friend, is it, who's now coming over for a visit?
Correct.
And was Gosha a little bit anxious about seeing her friend?
I didn't think she was, but the fact that she was intoxicated made me believe that it was actually Melanie's visit. This is an assumption. I can't back this up with any evidence, but I think that she was really concerned about when Melanie would have seen her last time, it would have been 10 years prior, and the difference of where she was in life 10 years on. I think she felt as if she was a failure.
Did Melanie come over to visit Gosha? Did Melanie also stay at your home?
Yeah, so that was so I found her intoxicated on the Saturday. I went off to work on the Sunday very early, and I left a note for Gosha saying, Melanie's arriving today. She's flown halfway around the world, partly to see you. I said, just look after the property and the home and make her room up for her and just be happy that your friend's coming to see you.
Now, do you believe there was a further meeting with Care Coordinator A, between Care Coordinator A and Gosha, but at a time when Melanie was present as well?
Yeah, it was on the Tuesday, I remember.
Were you present at that meeting?
I wasn't, no.
Did you learn about it afterwards?
I did.
Was that from talking to Melanie?
Yeah, I mean, if we can just dial back a day or so.
Yeah.
So Gosha didn't do as I asked that would have been the Sunday, the 23rd. Melanie calls me and said, well, that's been quite the effort. she's meant to be meeting Gosha at the station. Gosha's not there. She finally gets her on the phone. She's intoxicated, and she eventually finds where the property, and Gosha was drunk again, yeah.
And when you say she hadn't done what you'd asked, what had you asked?
Just make her bedroom up, do a little bit of housework. Yeah, that was it really. Just welcome my friend.
Right, just going back to the meeting with Care Coordinator A, where Melanie was present but you weren't.
Yep.
What information was provided to Care Coordinator A at that meeting?
I don't know exactly what information was.
So I understand through your lawyers that the information was that Gosha had been scratching herself.
Well, that had been ongoing for a little while, but the statement in the file of paperwork given from Melanie, and it's important to note that Melanie is a qualified nurse. She's Australian, but she practiced in Australia. She's also practiced in the UK. So she's dealt with mental health in various aspects of being a nurse. And so she wrote, after Gosha passed away, I know we're jumping on a bit, but it's
That's
relevant,
fine.
is that she wrote a statement for the coroner because we thought at the time it was suicide. And in that she details, and it's in all the paperwork, that Gosha was self-harming in front of Care Coordinator A.
Was that the scratching?
Yeah, scratching her arm.
Thank you. And was that at the meeting on the 26th of June?
Yeah, according to Melanie, the care coordinator was more concerned about Gosha's getting benefits than she was in her scratching her arm and self-harming.
So later that day, the 26th of June, did you see Gosha when you came back from work?
Yeah, so at this point when she's in the meeting, she's not drinking, but she has drunk over the weekend. On the Monday she was sober, I believe it's the Tuesday, and I'd been out working. I phoned Melanie, said, do you want me to bring in some food? And she went, well, it's been a bit of a challenging day. We've had the meeting. She described in a little detail what went on, but she said, Gosha's in the living room and she's drunk.
Did you have a conversation with Gosha?
Very brief one.
Do you remember it?
I do.
What was the brief conversation?
I asked her why she did it, as in drink, and she said, I don't know.
So what you said in your written evidence
Yeah,
is that she
sorry,
replied...
let me just
Yes.
recall it if you don't mind. She said, it's the only thing that makes it stop. To which I replied, make what stop? And she said, I don't know.
Thank
They're
you
the
very
words.
much. Well, Stuart, were those the last words that
They were.
Gosha said to you? No. We're going to move on, Stuart, to the next day and to Gosha's death. Is it right that on the morning of the 27th of June 2019, you went into Gosha's room at 8 a.m. and you discovered that she was dead?
Yep.
Was this shortly before her 42nd birthday?
Yeah.
And was this, therefore, around 3 weeks after her discharge from the Peterborough unit?
Yes.
Was Gosha's death deemed to be from natural causes, and was there therefore no inquest?
That's correct.
What's your view about deeming the death to be of natural causes?
Well, if it's natural causes, it's natural causes, but, I can't argue against that. But it felt more like to me that it was an overdose on alcohol. If her liver's that damaged, it's not going to last forever, but if she'd shot up a load of heroin and died, that'd be an overdose. But you take a load of alcohol and it's not an overdose. Maybe I could drink that much alcohol and I'd have a hangover, it wouldn't kill me. But if your liver's knackered, then it's a different matter altogether. The most disappointing factor out of that is that, it felt like a relief at the time, but there was no inquest. And if there'd been an inquest, we could have had questions raised over how someone can have a meeting with their care coordinator and then go out and effectively kill themselves.
In fact, as you say, no inquest. Are you aware of any other form of investigation, for example, with an EPUT in relation to Gosha's death?
They've never communicated with me at all, so I would have no idea.
What I want to do now, we're coming right to the end of your evidence, but I want to ask you, in fact, I want to read something that you've written to you and ask you about that. Can I do that now,
Yeah, sure.
please? So just for those present, this is page 3 of the supplementary statement. This is what you say. I'm supplying the attached information for a very simple reason. Thank you very much. It's been put up on the screen. People deserve better. Nothing will bring my friend back, but I do want her to have a legacy of change. It's my belief that the care Ms. Brechko-Novak received from both Brentwood and Chelmsford mental health unit staff was far below the required duty of care that both the organisations and their staff are required to provide. And this resulted in a level of care that was continually unacceptable. So you speak here about Gosha's experience being part of a legacy of change.
Yeah.
Is there anything more you'd like to say about that?
Well, how you want me to, or what I'd like to see the NHS change?
Well, we'll come on to that
Yeah.
point. You talk about the community teams at Brentwood and Chelmsford
Yeah.
and the care there being unacceptable. You don't criticise there Gosha's care as an inpatient on the Peterborough unit. Is that correct? That you don't criticise that?
No, I didn't see any failings at the mental health unit.
Other than the points that you've raised potentially in relation to a premature discharge?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
You say a little bit lower down in the passage that we can see on the screen, my hope is that by reviewing my information, this will empower you to address the severe disconnect that exists between your service and the friends and families that care for these vulnerable people. Is the point being made here again about failures to share information with people like you as Gosha's carer?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any support whatsoever for those that support those that are suffering mental health. I can only speak for my own case. However, I have spoken to plenty of other core participants, and it's a theme, and this constant feeling that you're going to have a finger point at you. Now, it might not be the situation where they're being accused of assault, but being told you're an enabler, that doesn't help you as a carer to care for that person. I mean, if I speak to any of my friends and they say, I've got somebody in my family that's suffering from mental health, and I go private, just don't go anywhere near the NHS, because you suddenly find out that they're pointing the finger at you, saying, well, you're part of the problem.
Could that be taken down, please? So you haven't suggested any recommendations in your written evidence for the chair to consider. Earlier in your evidence, you touched on a point that I now want to come back to,
Okay.
please. And it's to do with the use of medication rather than probing deeper.
Yeah.
I'm summarising it, but would you
Yeah.
let the chair know what your point is about that, please?
I can only talk about mental health is a broad spectrum, but I can only speak from what I've seen and confine it to mental health around addiction. Alcoholism is not a life aspiration. You know, it is a disease, but it doesn't get treated like one. From the addicts that I've met, including Gosha, and other addicts or alcoholics I've met working with mental health charities, behind every alcoholic or addict, there is a story, and it's normally a very tragic one, very sad one. It's normally from childhood. But unless you can't medicate out of that, that is trauma that's deeply entrenched. Unless we're going to set up, and the NHS is going to have a strategy to deal with that embedded trauma, we're never, ever going to solve mental health. So it's incumbent upon the NHS to change its strategy. I hate to say it, I don't believe it will, because it's so difficult to get this Leviathan to change its ways. But unless we come up with a root and branch change, you just cannot give enough medication to people. And I touched on it earlier. If you've got a patient with cancer, you can't give them painkillers and expect them to get better. You've got to deal with the cancer. And mental health, and especially childhood trauma, that is a mental cancer.
Stuart, those are the questions that I have for you. In a moment, we're going to see a photo of Gosha, but before we move on to that, I just want to ask you if there's anything else that you think we haven't covered that you'd like to cover now.
Just briefly, and I think this is relevant to the inquiry. I think it's relevant to MPs and ministers, and I don't know if there's any members of the press here, but I think it's incumbent upon you to look at this with a greater aspect of the tragedy involved. And there is a saying, and you may be familiar with it, but it's one death is a tragedy, 1 million deaths is a statistic. Some people attribute that to Joseph Stalin, which is quite unfortunate, but other historians disagree. But the meaning behind it is that each death is a tragedy. But the way it's been looked at is it's just a number. It's 2,000. It could be 1,500. It can be 2,500. We're becoming sanitised to that volume of death. And I think the media, the inquiry, politicians need to look at this as 2,000 individual tragedies. And unless we do that, I feel that we're not going to get change unless we get political will. And political will, it won't come from convictions, although I'd like to see convictions for neglect, criminal act. The media have got to get more behind this. And if the media get behind it, politicians will get behind it, and then we might get systemic change. But without that systemic change, the status quo is going to remain.
Thank you very much. Chair, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you. And thank you for it.
Stuart, we're going to just finish by showing the photo of Gosha. After that, we'll pause briefly to see if there are any more questions. Thank you. Could you take that down, please? Could that be taken down? Thank you. Stuart, we'll rise. It may not be necessary for you to come back. We're just going to check if there are any further questions. Sure. Thank you.